Ninjas cerebrales, bienvenidos de vuelta a nuestra serie de los sensei del aprendizaje. El día de hoy entrevisté a mi mentor. Estoy muy emocionado, la verdad no pensé que este día fuera a llegar porque ya te he contado muchísimo de esta persona. El legendario Ron White fue la primera persona que me inspiró a aprender mnemotecnia, las habilidades de memorización, convertirme en un atleta mental, la persona que me inspiró a seguir tomando acción. Y la verdad es que yo lo conocí en el 2015 por pura casualidad. Yo había dejado mi carrera, había renunciado a mi trabajo, no sabía qué hacer con mi vida, empecé a desarrollarme en diferentes temas, aprendí mucho de desarrollo humano y justo gracias a los libros encontré las técnicas de memoria y de estudio y empecé a aprender mucho. Y por casualidad, la semana siguiente de este descubrimiento llega Ron White a la Ciudad de México a dar un seminario frente a 2,000, 3,000 personas y decido ir a conocerlo. Me voló la cabeza porque hizo cosas impresionantes, empezó a memorizar una serie de números, una serie de palabras, de frases, de una forma muy rápida, pero lo que más me impresionó fueron sus récords de memorización y lo fácil que te hacía ver aprender de estas técnicas. Y henos aquí, 9 años después, cuando puedo entrevistarlo, la verdad no me cabe la emoción en este momento, así que te voy a mostrar a una leyenda. Ron White es bicampeón de memorización en Estados Unidos y ha hecho demostraciones impresionantes, tales como memorizar 300 nombres de personas en un mismo salón en tiempo real. Ha memorizado miles de números y de palabras en orden. Ha memorizado la Constitución de Estados Unidos palabra por palabra de inicio a fin. Y el mejor récord de memorización que tiene es haber memorizado 2,400 nombres de soldados en una guerra de Afganistán en la cual él participó. Memorizó todos los nombres con apellido y por número, todos en orden. Y después a este proyecto le puso el nombre de The Memory Wall o el muro de la memoria, en donde literalmente en un muro se puso a escribir con su puño todos los 2,400 nombres de los soldados en orden. Y por todas estas acciones se ha convertido en uno de los líderes más reconocidos en técnicas de memorización en todo el mundo. Y estimados ninjas, Ron White es mi primer mentor. Él encendió esta llama interior para involucrarme y aprender muchísimo más acerca de todos estos temas. Así que te lo presento. The legend Ron White. Welcome to this episode of the Learning Sensei. Dear Ron, thanks for accepting the invitation, and it's a great pleasure to meet you.
Oh, well, thank you, Pablo. That is very nice and kind of you to say, and I am very happy to be here and see you again.
It's really nice to have you here because I met you back in 2015 in an event. It was the first time someone like you influenced me to learn more about memory techniques, because at that time I was started to learn some kind of mnemonics, like memorizing numbers, memorizing names or some words. And you came to Mexico the first time and I was inspired. I bought your book, that is How to Improve Your Memory in Just 30 Days. I started to practice, I did all the exercises. You inspired me to become even better in memory techniques. For me, it was the best moment in my life. This is our picture.
There you go. Look at that. Yeah, look at that. I had a little. My hair was a different color, and looks good though. Looks good. I like that. What? Very nice.
The best picture I have in my life. And I show it to all my subscribers and everything because all this progress is influenced by you. So thank you very much, Ron, for accepting this invitation. And to begin, I would like to know, how would you describe Ron White and why did you decide to become a memory athlete?
Well, thank you very much. And you know, I got involved in this pretty close to the same age you were, I guess, in 2015. I'm 50 years old now, okay. But when I was 18 years old, I was a salesperson, a telephone salesperson, and I would call people all day long to try to get us to clean their chimney. And I called a guy one day and I said, "Can we clean your chimney?" And he said, "We don't want our chimney cleaned. We're trying to sell our house. Thanks for calling." And before he could hang up the phone, I said, "Well, sir, if you're trying to sell your house, you should have a clean chimney." And he said, "You know what? I don't know about that, but I do need a good salesman. Do you want to go to work for me?" And he said, "I sell memory training seminars. Do you want to go to work for me?" And so should have taken down his information, and I went to work for him just 3 or 4 days later. And that was, that was in 1991, 32 years ago. And he taught memory seminars. And so for the next, I would say 12 or 13 years, I just taught memory seminars. I had no interest in being a memory athlete or anything like that. I would see the people on the TV shows memorizing all this stuff, and I thought, wow, that's not me. Something changed in me, and I really wanted to be a memory athlete. I wanted to set records. I wanted to compete in tournaments, and it was just a thing I wanted to do to prove to myself, and I'm so glad I did. It opened up a crazy wide door for me, and it's been 20 years of doing memory feats and demonstrations, and I still teach memory seminars. That's how I make my living.
You told that you weren't very good at school, but then after when you learned memory techniques, you were inspired to learn much more. So that contrast was very interesting to hear.
I love learning. I believe in education. I believe in learning and the value of that. But yeah, I did not do well in college. I don't know what system you have for scoring in Mexico, but in the United States, we do a 4.0 scale. You know,
Okay.
4.0 is the good grades, and the 3.0 is the okay grades.
More or less.
2.0 is not so good. Is this the same way there?
It's in a scale from 1 to 10, but to be honest, it's more like 5 to 10.
And worst being the 5?
Being 5, yes.
Yeah, then I was about a 5.
Okay.
And I got kicked out of college, but and I learned memory at about the same time, and that really turned everything around for me.
That's nice to hear, Ron. When you started to practice memory skills, was there a point where you rewired your mindset and said, I'm really good at this, I'm going to go pro?
The reason I was drawn to competing in tournaments, I think, was more just something to prove to myself. You know, after being a memory speaker for 10 years, you start getting introduced as the foremost leading memory expert. You know, it's an integrity thing. You're standing at the back of the room and you're thinking, why do I deserve to be introduced as that? What have I ever done other than teach a course?
Okay.
I need to do something to earn that title. And
Yes.
so that's what I did. And that was really the driving force. I felt I needed to earn that title, not just
course.
be a marketer and give it to myself.
And then you did a lot of memory demonstrations, and I think your best memory feat is the memory wall, where you memorized the name of 2,400 soldiers in an Afghanistan war, right? It was really impressive because you memorized all the names in order, and I remember that you could recall any name by number, and then you wrote all 2,400 names in a wall by hand. Could you tell us more about that memory feat?
It's certainly the one that's the most important to me. You know, I was in the United States military. I did time in Afghanistan. And so when I returned from Afghanistan, I wanted to memorize everybody from the U.S. military that died. So it was 2,300 people, ranked first name, last name. It's 7,500 words. And I write it out on a wall. It took me a year to memorize. It takes me about 10 or 13 hours to write it out. But it's the most significant and important to me. Matter of fact, I haven't done it in a couple years. And my goal is to restart that in 2024.
That was really impressive and a really nice act of a human being like you. By the way, to let you know more about this channel, the great majority of the community are students, and they are in the need of learning a lot of information. But some of the biggest issues they have are these ones: forgetting information quickly, having poor comprehension, or having trouble organizing their time. So, what would be your best advice in order to improve the study skills of these students?
The first thing that I think you need to do is you need to look at the information and understand how much there, understand the scope of the project. Is this, and what I mean by that is look, take time to look at it. So here's a book, you're studying this for a test. Look at it and think, oh, okay, well, this is, how many pages is it? It's 140 pages. Okay, well, now that I know how much information is there, I think the next step is to go through and read with a pen or a highlighter. And don't try to memorize as you're reading. Just try to understand it. When you're reading it, you are just wanting to get an overall picture. You're just wanting to kind of understand a general idea. And underline or highlight the key words. Underline or highlight them as you go. And then you're going to get the key words or the key thoughts underlined or memorized. And at that point, I think that's really when the memorization process starts. Then you go back. So first step, just read it, get an overview. Second step, as you read, highlight or underline, create notes for yourself. And then the third thing is that's where I use something called the Mind Palace, where I imagine what I want to remember. And I don't know how familiar your viewers are with it, but I imagine I want to remember the underlying things on top of locations in my brain.
I think that's the biggest issue, because after the reading, people start to repeat all their notes. So when they start to memorize new things like that, what's the best mnemonic you would recommend?
Yeah, so there are the different mnemonics you can use. One would be, there's something called a peg system, where you assign a word to every number. So one in some of these peg systems is run, 2 is shoe, 3 is tree, 4 is door, So, and then whatever you want to remember, the second thing you want to remember, since 2 is a shoe, you imagine it going inside of your shoes. Like, let's say you're memorizing the periodic table of elements: hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium. Well, helium is number 2 on this list. 1 run, 2 shoe, 2 is shoe. So you would attach helium to shoe, and you would imagine the helium balloons lifting up the shoe. Now that is a mnemonic there, where you've got an object associated with every number, and then you take what you want to remember and you associate it with those objects by visualizing it, creating a crazy story. I do use that, but I don't use it so often. What I tend to use the most often is that mind palace that I just mentioned. And that's where you memorize a map of your room, you number 5 pieces of furniture in your room, and now on number 2, instead of attaching it to shoes, you're attaching it to that piece of furniture, number 2 in your house. And for me, that is easier. I'll tell you this: when I memorized those 2,400 soldiers, the first 1,000 I attached to a peg list: 1 run, 2 shoe, 3 tree, 4. The 1,001 to 2,400, I put in a huge mind palace. The second half, 1,001 to 2,400, was so much easier for me to memorize, because there's just something easier about looking at a room and visualize versus thinking. I would say I'm a memorizer almost twice as fast. And here's the interesting thing: when I wrote it out on the wall, I write out the second half twice as fast as I do the first half.
Okay.
And that was a huge discovery for me. It shocked me. But because when I'm going through, I got to think 789. What's my picture for 789? Okay, yeah, I got it. And then I'll write it out. But as soon as I get to 1,001 on that list, my hand can't go fast enough. So my brain is going faster than my hand. Mind palace is my favorite.
People tell me, Pablo, I don't remember my mind palace. What would you advise to someone who don't know how to select a correct mind palace?
You're not going to forget a mind palace if it's in your own house. And if you do, you just haven't reviewed it enough, okay? And here's another thing I'll suggest to you. Create a rule for yourself. Tell yourself, I'm only going to do 5 in a room. If you have 5 in one room, 9 in one room, 8 in one room, 4 in another room, 3 in another room, I can see you getting confused because you can't remember. But if you have 5 in a room, you know it's going to be easy to remember which 5 are the ones. And you're not going to forget your own house. So your own house should be easy. But if you are starting to use stuff like your school or a city or that you know well, you could start forgetting locations. So here's what I did. I got my cell phone and I went for a walk around an area of town I knew really well. I took a picture of that trash can. I took a picture of that sign. I took a picture of that ATM machine. I took a picture of that window. And I put 300 or 400 pictures in order, in the exact order that they fall, in a PowerPoint. And then I memorized that PowerPoint. Now, here's an interesting thing. After you have that 200 slide PowerPoint built and you have your mind palace in there, you know what you can do? Underneath each picture, you can type the words that you want to memorize inside that picture. And it gives you another way of review. So now when you're reviewing, you're looking at one slide and you think to yourself, what comes next? Okay, I know what comes next. What are the words on the next one? And you say the words, then you click next and you see if you got it right or wrong. That's a great way to review.
That really helps because when the mind palace is visually attractive and you can look at it straight, it's easier to memorize. And actually, it's a really great advice to someone who feels confused when trying to visualize a new mind palace. And what happens when a student must memorize more information from a single topic? I mean, when he or she is in the need of memorizing not just words, but ideas, lines, or several concepts. How can the mind palace be applied in this case? Or which other mnemonic or technique is recommended?
You want to memorize as much as you can, but also as little as you can.
I get it.
So the more you can remember, the more brain triggers for your mind, right? But the less you memorize, the quicker you can go. Cicero, 2,000 years ago, there's some writings called Ad Horenum. And there's a debate if Cicero was the author of it or not. I'm just going to say he was. But Cicero wrote 2,000 years ago, when you're wanting to memorize large strings of information like you're talking about, not just a blurb, he said, in his own words, he answered this exact question. He said, it is easier to essentially memorize one word. It's more difficult to memorize like a paragraph or something. And read the paragraph through 3 or 4 times to get it what he called in your natural memory. He said, if you can read it 3 or 4 times and get it in your natural memory, then what he referred to as your artificial memory will just need brain triggers. Now, let's take the United States Constitution. I memorized that. That has to be word for word. It has to be. Yeah. That's the whole point of it. I can't just write it in my own words.
No, of course not.
Yeah, it's 4,500 words. It has to be exact. It starts off, we the people of the United States. So I see a bunch of people and they're chanting, we the people of the United States. I see that picture on my first piece of furniture, but I say the words, we the people of the United States. Then my next piece of furniture, the next line is, in order to form a more perfect union. On my next piece of furniture, I see union workers and they're going on strike because they have a sign,
Yes.
I look at my first piece of furniture, we the people of the United States. I see all those people chanting, we the people of the United States. And then over there, I look over there and I see people striking. And why are they striking? They're on strike to form a more perfect union. But I say the words in order to form a more perfect union. So that's one strategy I'm going to do. I'm going to share with you one more strategy here. And sometimes I will use the first letter of each word. So let's take a sentence. I will look at that sentence and I'll take the first letter of each word. And maybe I'll create some story out of those first letters. Maybe I can break those first few, maybe these 3 letters could form a word. These 3 could form a word. And then I'll see that on that location. And using that first letter technique, that is something that was very helpful. I coached a guy. He wanted to memorize the entire Bible word for word. It was the craziest thing I've ever heard anybody say.
Yeah.
But he and I worked together a lot on that technique where he would take the first letter of every word in a verse, create some image out of it that worked for him, and attach it to a piece of furniture. And he memorized 20 chapters of the Bible that way.
In complement with memory techniques, what study skills would you recommend in order to study smarter?
My best study skills would be the first one, and I hate to say it because it's so, everybody says it, but it's true. You got to get enough sleep. If you learn something today, everybody says you got to get enough sleep before a test. That's true. But what's also true is that if you learn something today and you get a good night's sleep tonight, when you wake up tomorrow, you'll remember what you learned the day before better. So sleep is very important for a study habit. I would say another thing that is important is breaking it down into chunks. I like to do 10% at a time. So, first of all, when I'm memorizing 4,500 words in the Constitution, I looked at it as 10 groups of 450 words. Yes. And that becomes much more doable than 4,500 words. So break it down into chunks, 10% at a time. Take breaks. I'm sure most of your listeners have heard of the Pomodoro technique where you study for 20 minutes and you take a break. That is so important. I believe good nutrition and exercise is important. Study groups are important. Study with friends who are in the same topic as you. And that's really important. There's Richard Feynman. One of the things that he really believed was you need to teach this to others. So take what you learn and teach it to others. And that's a really good thing about it. If you have a study group where you can say, okay, this is what I learned about it, and they share what they learned, and then they share what they learned. In essence, you're teaching it to somebody else, but you're also getting other people's perspective. So those are some really great study techniques, I think.
Okay, did you apply certain study skills such as active recall or spaced repetition?
You definitely need to do an active recall and not a passive recall. And I'm sure most of your listeners probably know what it is, but I'll just say it. A passive recall is I want to review this book, so I just keep looking at it again. The problem with that is you can trick yourself into thinking you know the information when really you're just recognizing it again. So an active recall is you look away, you try to think of it, then you say the answer, then you go back and look and see if you got it right. it's going to make it more solid in your memory, but you're also not going to be able to trick yourself into thinking you know it. One thing that I loved to do when I was memorizing the soldiers on the wall and the United States Constitution is I created what I call audio flashcards. So here's an example. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, then it goes on and on and on. But on my audio flashcards, I would do this. We, the people of the United States. Pause. In order to form a more perfect union. Pause.
Okay.
And now, when I'm listening to the recording, I will say the answer in the pause, and then the recording comes on and tells me if I'm right or wrong. That's an active recall too, but that's one that you can do while you're driving in your car, or you're going for a walk, or you're on a bus or a train or anything.
So the key for an effective active recall is retrieving the main ideas on your own without looking at the information. That really works. This is one of the community's questions. What's Ron White's memory routine? What do you do every day to train your memory?
Well, you know, I'm 50 years old. I can sense my memory slowing down a little bit. But I think this applies if you're 50 or if you're 18 or 20 or 30. And you got to take care of yourself. You know, it becomes more important at my age to take care of myself than it does for somebody when they're 30, but I think it applies to everybody. I think take good care of yourself. Drink enough water. Drinking plenty of water, a dehydrated brain can't focus. If you're having brain fog and difficulty focusing, ask yourself, are you filling yourself up on just caffeine? Well, you know, if you're filling yourself up on just caffeine and no water, you're going to get a boost. You're going to get a boost of energy, but you're also going to have that crash and you're going to have brain fog. So here's my question. Here's my answer to that question. Drink plenty of water. Stay hydrated. That is very important. More important than you will know. You hear me say it now as a student, but as you get older, it's going to become more and more necessary. And it does so many things to keep your brain healthy and fresh. But another thing is, you know, you could eat a diet that's rich in fish because fish have omega-3s. I am allergic to fish, so I can't. So I have to take an omega-3 pill. Exercise. Find a sport that you love. And people are like, Ron, stop with this. We know memory techniques and you're telling us health techniques. I'm telling you the two are tied together. Go exercise. Find a sport that you love. Tennis or basketball or yoga or martial arts, something that you love doing, running, whatever that you love doing, and that will keep you active. If you can keep your body active, you can keep your brain active. Now, with all that said, the person who asked that question probably wasn't wanting that response. They were wanting memory techniques. So let me give you a few things that I do. When I was training for the USA Memory Championship in 2009, and I was wanting to get really good at numbers, I would play a game when I drove. And as I was driving, I would see license plates and I would be turning them into pictures. And after I turned them into a picture, then I flipped the number the other way and I said the number the other way. Okay. I'd look up at the billboard and I would see the numbers there. Here's another thing that you could do. If you're a student right now, you have so much information that you can practice your memory on memorizing, but also maybe find something that is just for fun, something that you love. Do you love baseball? Do you love football? Find something that you love and you want to memorize all the movies that won all the awards for the last 50 years, or you want to memorize your favorite poem. Give yourself something to practice your memory on that's fun. That way you start seeing memory as fun and not just work to pass your tests. I think that's a really important thing.
So practicing with something you really like in order to apply it to something else in your study.
That's right. And there are online memory competitions. Maybe you get involved in those. Or maybe you start one, you attend one in Mexico or something. Lots of different options.
Yeah, that's a really great advice. Telling you that the vast majority of students have a really bad time studying a lot of information. What would be your best productivity advice for busy people who need to study a lot of information every day?
Yeah, you know, once, probably about 15 years ago, a guy came to me, a friend of mine, And he said, man, I asked this girl out on a date and she said she wanted to go out with me, but she just didn't have any time. You know, she had all this stuff going on. And I said, man, can I be honest with you? He said, yeah. I said, when she says she doesn't have any time, she has time. What she means is she doesn't have time for you.
Oh my God.
And he was like, oh my gosh. I said, dress in black for a week and pretend like she's dead. You know, it's over. It ain't gonna happen. But it's kind of brutal. But let's also be honest here. I have so much stuff that I want to get done. Right now I am trying to move a lot of stuff out of my storage units and get rid of it. I'm also wanting to run my business and sell more memory products. And I'm also wanting to exercise or whatever. And last night at the end of the day, it was 8 o'clock and I ran out of time. I was so exhausted. I couldn't continue doing the things that I needed to do to get done. But I also understand it's a very real thing when you get overloaded with stuff. My advice is you know, just to prioritize as far as studying goes. What are you weakest in? What area, if you have to work and you have all this other stuff going on and you don't have as much time to study as you want, what are you weakest in? What area do you need to improve the most of knowledge? And spend your time working on that. And maybe, you know, you need to utilize your transit time, driving to work, driving home from work. That's when the audio flashcards are going to work because you can't read while you're driving. But let's say you've got a 30-minute commute to work. Well, that's 30 minutes to work. That's 30 minutes home from work. That's an hour of study time if you have audio flashcards. I know you're going to get a break at your work, you know, take a break or whatever, but if you get a 30-minute break, maybe use 15 minutes of it to study in your car or something like that. I was in a war zone in Afghanistan, a war zone. I worked 12-hour days, but I also had my memory book there with me. And during my deployment to Afghanistan, I turned every picture from 101 to 999 into a picture. I memorized 900 pictures for numbers because in my downtime, I would go on a convoy where people were trying to kill me. And when I got to the base to safety, my friends would get out of the car and they would go relax and talk or whatever. I remember one day just sitting there in the car reviewing my numbers, you know what I'm saying? And they all looked over at me. They're like, this guy is an idiot. But I just really tried to make use of my downtime. So the people who are listening, I want you to know I understand that your day is crammed and it's packed and you've got so much going on. And I'm telling you to use that transit time, use your break time, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes here. But you have to be prepared. You have to prepare in advance for that. And you prepare in advance by having your audio flashcards or a notebook with you, or something like that at all times. I'm going to say one more thing on this. You know, Jim Rohn, who is a speaker and a mentor of mine, you know, he said we all pay two prices. We pay either the price of discipline or we pay the price of regret. Okay. And he said discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs tons. So here's the thing. I know right now that these students, you're going through a time of maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 years of it is just intense work, intense study. But this time of discipline that you are going through right now is going to pay off later. If you choose not to do the discipline, the price you will pay, you're either going to pay a price now of studying intently and working and doing. You're either going to pay a price now of discipline, or you're going to pay, if you don't do it, you will pay the price later, and the price later will be regret. Discipline weighs a very little, as much as a feather. Regret weighs tons. So that would be my feedback on that.
Those little steps of improvement are the key. So it's more about focusing on the progress with tiny little improvements that pay off in the long term, with time of discipline, right?
Little things add up. I had a box of postcards. Those postcards weighed no more than this, but there was a box of them.
Really heavy.
I could not lift it. I had to take papers out to lift it. And I had so many of those boxes. I had 10 boxes and my back was hurting from lifting the boxes. Here's the thing. Each one by itself is so little, but together they added up to a weight I couldn't lift. And that goes back to what you just said. You said little bitty things over time add up to big things. Don't forget that. That's how rivers are carved. That's how canyons are carved.
Excellent. That's a really nice advice. Puro oro molido lo que nos ha compartido Ron White. La verdad es que es muy valioso que nos comparta todas sus técnicas, todos sus secretos, porque es lo que lo ha llevado a ser campeón y llevar a cabo todos sus récords. Y como en todas las entrevistas, Ron White no se va a salvar de nuestro reto ninja, el reto de las 20 preguntas. Este reto consiste en lo siguiente. Le haré a Ron White 20 preguntas rápidas. Él no sabe de qué son. Tiene 6 segundos para responder cada una. Y tiene 2 minutos para lograrlo, así que veamos cómo le va.
Okay, let me set my timer on my clock so I know where I'm at.
20 questions in 2 minutes. Are you ready, Ron, for
Yes.
the challenge? Okay, we're starting the challenge in 3, 2, 1, go. Define Ron White in 1 word.
Discipline.
First thing you feel when you hear the word memorize.
Excitement.
Your top 3 habits.
Diet, exercise, and kindness.
Favorite mnemonic.
The Mind Palace.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Be invisible.
Your most used location to memorize.
My mom's house.
Favorite book or a recent book.
I'm memorizing the Bible right now.
Favorite study skill.
Active recall.
What would you tell to someone who says that want a better memory without making the effort?
Forget it.
Favorite hobby.
Jiu-jitsu.
Author you admire.
Jordan Peterson.
What's the best memory stunt you have done?
The Afghanistan memory wall.
What's the memory practice you enjoy the most?
I like memorizing numbers.
Complete the sentence. Every student every day should
Think positive thoughts.
make a quick association with my name, Pablo.
Pablo, I see a paw. Or better yet, Pueblo. A Pueblo.
Exactly. What did you do to keep you motivated every day?
Exercise and think positive thoughts.
Favorite movie or series?
Indiana Jones.
Mention 1 or 2 memory athletes you admire.
Boris Conrad and Ben Pridmore.
Favorite dish?
Fajita.
What's your mnemonic for number 77?
A kick.
King Kong or Godzilla?
King Kong.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Pizza with or without pineapple?
With.
Okay, let's give a big applause to Ron. He did the challenge correctly. I would like to tell you a little more about this channel, and there are 2 characters in this channel. I made the ninja, the brain ninja, who is the inner self who wants to study, to learn new things, who is always motivated to do stuff and take action. And the antagonist is the gorilla. The gorilla is our inner self who wants to procrastinate, who doesn't want to study, who is lazy, who likes distractions and everything else. So, what would you tell to someone who is in gorilla mode?
I love that. That is so creative. That is so creative. I really do love that. I love that a lot, more than you know. That's I like that. What would I tell the person who is procrastinating?
Yeah.
You know, it's what I told myself yesterday morning. My body was aching. I was just in such pain. I was just aching, and I was laying in bed, and I had all this work to do, and I just told myself the work's not going to do itself. You know, I said those words out loud. The work's not going to do itself.
That's right.
And I got out of bed, and the toughest battle that you will have to fight is against yourself, you know, and against that gorilla. That's a great analogy. And you must tell yourself you're stronger than the gorilla. You're procrastinating for a reason. Maybe you're overwhelmed, then just give yourself a little bitty chunk and focus on that little bitty chunk. If you're focused because you're afraid you're gonna fail, tell yourself, of course I'm gonna fail. You know, the best baseball players fail 75% of the time, 70% of the time. Do not feel failure. I would tell yourself that if you can battle that gorilla today, and don't let the gorilla win, you will be stronger. And so tomorrow when you battle the gorilla, you will be a little bit stronger than you were the day before. And if you can make a habit of battling that gorilla every single day over a period of time, you are going to get stronger than that gorilla. But you have to fight him a little bit every day.
That's right. The gorilla, it's like our shadow. We can't get rid of it, but we can control it and be much better than the day before. I mean, we can be more ninja. Pero mira nada más, me dio muchísima alegría saber que a Ron le gustó el concepto del modo gorila. Y la verdad, una de las cosas que más admiro de Ron es que es muy empático y es muy ocurrente. De hecho, en todas sus conferencias se saca chistes y bromas que tienen que ver con lo que enseña, que son bastante divertidas. Y el hecho de que el gorila le haya gustado para mí fue como lo máximo, porque es la máxima creación aquí del canal. Y pues creo que lo entendió perfecto y los consejos que nos dan son una maravilla. Así que Ron White también es un ninja cerebral que combate al modo gorila. Y nada más por eso, y por ser una leyenda y por estar aquí en el canal con todos nosotros, vamos a hacerle el nombramiento ninja. ¿Esto qué significa? El nombramiento es el título que le vamos a poner a Ron White a partir de ahora en el canal. A partir de hoy, Ron White se convertirá en nuestro sensei. Hagámosle el nombramiento ninja. From now on, for us, you are going to be the memory sensei, our memory sensei. Perfect, Ron. Thank you very much. To finish this interview, I want to share something really nice that I've learned from you. I learned that from your book, How to Improve Your Memory in Just 30 Days. Back in 2015, after I met you, I read it in, I don't know, 1 week. I made all the exercises, but there was one exercise. There was one page I really enjoyed. And since 2015, I haven't forgotten that page. I'll show a picture of it in the screen. So I want to demonstrate it to you because I'm very grateful and I'm happy that you introduced me to memory skills and the world of memory athletes. So here I go. It's the poem, The Man in the Glass, My Mind Palace. Okay, it's ready. If you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it is not your father, your mother, or wife, whose judgment open you must pass, but the fellow's verdict who counts most in your life is the man looking back from the glass. Some people may say you're a square-shooting chum and call you a wonderful guy, but the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can look him straight in the eye. He's the one to please, never mind the rest, for he's with you clear up until the end, and you will pass your most dangerous and difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world on the pathway of years and get pats on your back as you pass, but the final reward will be heartache and tears if you have cheated the man in the glass. And that's thanks to you, Ron. Thank you very much.
Wow, that's amazing. Hey, great job. Great
Thank
job.
you.
That's awesome. Good
That's
job.
thanks to this. Thank you very much, Ron.
Well, I appreciate that, and I do appreciate you saying that, and it means a lot to me. You know, oftentimes, you wonder if what you're doing is making a difference to anybody. So when I hear that, I want you to know how much I appreciate what you're saying, and it means a lot to me. I'll think about it all day today, and maybe even tomorrow and next week. If I get down and discouraged, I'll think about it. And I also want to acknowledge, though, that I have, when I spoke in Mexico the day I met you, there was 3,000 people there.
Yes.
I went to my next speech. Maybe I spoke for 1,000 people the next week, 1,000 the next week, 1,000 the next week, 1,000 this week, 2,000 that week, 10,000 this week. And if we got all the people in the room who've maybe memorized and really embraced what I said and took it to the next level as you have, it's a small group of people. And I did help provide the spark for you, but you took the spark on your own and you took it further and you applied it and you did so much more than what most people do who listen to me speak. I wish everybody did. So I want to acknowledge and appreciate you and congratulate you on your discipline and the work that you put in on that, because not everybody does it. So good luck. Good congratulations to you too.
I appreciate it very much, Ron. Coming from you, it's like the best words I think I've heard in my life. So thank you very much. I'm grateful about it. And to end this interview, I would like if you could tell us or tell the community what are your courses, or where can they find your book or your black belt memory method, or where can they know more about you?
I would just say two things. Maybe you can link to my channel, my YouTube channel. So if you could just link to my YouTube channel, maybe they can watch some videos there. And if they want to get my memory course, I do have a memory course. It fits real good into you being a ninja and the sensei and all that, because my course is called Black Belt Memory, like you get a black belt in karate. So blackbeltmemory.com is the website. Matter of fact, if they go to blackbeltmemory.com, there's a free gift they can get a gift.
So I will leave the link in the description of this interview. And I just remembered that you also do sports, you do jiu-jitsu, and I saw that you won some medals in that sport. So that's really nice.
I won one. I'm not as good at jiu-jitsu as I am memory. The people I do jiu-jitsu with joke with me, tell me I need to memorize jiu-jitsu.
Justo lo que te contaba al principio, en el 2015 no sabía qué hacer con mi vida porque me di cuenta que la carrera que estudié no era lo mío, me titulé, después renuncié a mi trabajo y no sabía qué hacer, entonces me dediqué a estudiar mucho acerca de desarrollo humano, ahí encontré las Mnemotecnias, técnicas de estudio, hasta que por alguna casualidad o por el destino llega Ron White a la Ciudad de México, una semana después de que yo hice ese descubrimiento y empecé a practicar todo esto. Era como una especie de instinto y decidí seguirlo. Y vaya que valió la pena porque además de crear el canal Ninja Cerebral y que todos ustedes estén aquí presentes, pudimos charlar con el famoso y legendario Ron White. Thank you very much, Ron, and here we are 8 or 9 years later speaking the same language.
Well, I really appreciate what you're saying. That means a lot to me, and thank you for having me on your channel. And maybe we can talk again. Do another Zoom one day. So
yes, of course.
But I enjoy being on. Thank you very much, and please keep in touch with me.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Vamos a darle un fuertísimo aplauso y reconocimiento a nuestro querido amigo ninja y sensei de la memorización, Ron White. Espero te haya gustado muchísimo la entrevista, que hayas aprendido mucho acerca de las técnicas de memorización, habilidades para estudiar mejor y todos los consejos que él nos dio. Y te propongo una cosa, por favor dime en los comentarios qué fue lo que más te gustó de la entrevista, qué fue lo que más aprendiste y lo que te gustaría practicar. Haber conocido a mi ídolo y a mi primer mentor, la verdad no me cabe la alegría y la emoción, así que por favor, para aprender más de Ron White, compren su libro, se llama How to Improve Your Memory in Just 30 Days, cómo mejorar tu memoria en solo 30 días. Son 30 capítulos y cada capítulo tiene un ejercicio de memorización bastante interesante. Les voy a poner el enlace del libro debajo en la descripción de este video para que puedan comprarlo. Puede ser en formato físico o en formato digital, está muy completo. También por favor sigan a Ron White en su canal de YouTube y déjenle algún comentario por ahí de que vienen de la comunidad Ninja Cerebral y que vienen de parte de este video, para que se sorprenda y sigan aprendiendo con él en inglés. Pueden practicar el idioma en caso de que les interese el inglés, así que el canal de Ron se los dejo en la descripción. Y por último, si quieres profundizar en aprender más acerca de técnicas y métodos de memorización con Ron White en inglés, te dejo el enlace de su curso debajo en la descripción de este video para que puedas adquirirlo y seguir aprendiendo con él en inglés. Si quieres que entreviste a más personas en la serie de los sensei del aprendizaje, dime tus propuestas aquí en los comentarios. Suscríbete al canal para más contenido ninja, más técnicas de estudio, memorización y lectura, y nos vemos en el próximo video. Te dejo el canal de Ron y más técnicas ninja de este lado.